Rumour has it the Canon R1 will be the flagship camera to beat. Let's look into that. Hi, I'm Tom and you're watching Rumour Has It. Please subscribe for camera news, rumour and informed opinion. It's free to subscribe and it helps the channel grow. It also allows a free entry to the subscriber draw. Check the link above. I'll speak a little about that later, as I'm getting close to the 100 subscribers. The 1DX is Canon's flagship DSLR. Canon reserve the best technology for this camera, and it's used and appreciated by professionals in most photography genres. The 1DX is optimised to capture fast action and for when fast response is required from the photographer. In these days of immediate news, it's important to capture the moment and share it instantly, no matter where, in what circumstance it happens. That's why these bodies are so rugged. They have to stand up to a lot of abuse and be reliable to get the job done in the most demanding circumstances. This is one reason you won't see a flippy screen on the R1. So even if you're the most careful owner, remember, it was built for a much tougher life. The 1DX Mark III is Canon's current iteration of that camera. Announced in January 2020, it was intended for the Tokyo Olympics. But we all know what happened soon after that. This is where I get a little controversial, as I tell you. This camera, despite wowing us with the impressive specification for the time, like touch-sensitive AF on button and the AI-based tracking, the Mark III was actually a stopgap camera. Bear with me here, there's good news to come, I'm just setting the scene. I'll explain fully my reasoning behind that. I believe Canon were not quite ready to release the technology we later saw in the R5. The R5 was announced in July 2020, only 6 months after the 1DX3, so it must have been close. The processor was ready with the DigX, but little else. This is why the 1DX Mark III has no IBIS option and only 191 tracking points, compared to the R5, which has 1053 tracking points and IBIS plus lens stability totaling 8 stops. This is why I think it was rushed for the Olympics. Canon believed the DigX was so important an update that the processor alone and the benefits it brought was worth releasing. Normally that best-in-class IBIS, focusing and tracking, which we saw later in the R5, would have been implemented on the 1DX. And this is why I think Canon will break the normal 4-year cycle and announce the R1 in 2021. The 1DX Mark III will still receive updates, and it'll be an excellent tool for the large but reducing number of photographers who prefer a DSLR and its optical viewfinder to mirrorless. But Canon's future is with mirrorless and RF lenses, so it makes perfect sense for the 1D to R1 transition to happen this year. Perhaps the speed and functional capability of the R5 and the RF lenses should be brought to the R1. Now that the tech has been tested in the market, Canon will use that feedback to refine and finesse the R1 so that it rightly takes the flagship crown. Let's take a look at what Canon's likely to bring with the R1. Sensor. This is a difficult one. Canon are rumoured to be releasing a brand new quad-pixel AF sensor that's been kept under wraps. They've been working on this since 2021 and have a number of patents which prove they're deep into the design of such a sensor. But are they ready to release it yet? Historically, the 1DX has been a low megapixel camera for fast file transfer, ease of storage, editing and low light capability. Although the 1DX Mark III is full frame, it's not that long ago that the 1D series used a crop frame sensor. If I were to call it, I'd say the sensor will still be 21 megapixels, but with quad pixel technology this might be termed as 80 megapixels, which could explain the mixed rumours we're hearing. If Canon have cracked a global shutter, in which case readout speeds and pixel counts go out the window, then we could be in for a big surprise. We no longer have to make the choice between high speed or high megapixels, as evidenced by the R5 and cameras like the Sony A1. But remember, online news media, and to some extent print media, will be calling the shots here, so file size, storage and speed of transfer will be crucial, and that might restrict the size of sensor they choose. But file formats like HEIF could address those concerns, a sort of one-ring solution. Now look at viewfinder, another area that's difficult to call. Canon stuck with an optical viewfinder on the 1DX Mark III because many photographers demanded it. This is not just a concern over EVF lag, as technology has largely overcome this. However, light travels at the speed of light, but electronics will always take time to process. There is another key area of concern here. Many sports photographers actually use both eyes. One through the viewfinder on the action, and the other wide field looking at where the action is moving. These photographers will have difficulty with even the best EVFs. Will Canon leave them behind with the 1DX Mark III? Time will tell. But if Canon can pull off a sensor with a global shutter, I believe they will match this with an equally impressive 9 megapixel EVF with zero lag and a variable refresh rate up to 240 Hz. Canon pride themselves on the user experience, and the flagship fast action camera will only get an EVF if they can achieve zero lag. Now look at shutter. Again, this will depend on the rumoured global shutter sensor. That tech could give what Elon would call ludicrous speeds. But there is scope within existing tech that would allow improvement to the already impressive 1DX Mark III, which has 16 frames per second mechanical and 20 frames per second electronic, with only one DigicX processor. So all Canon have to do here is fit two processors, and they're already known to do that in the 1D range. So expect at least 20 frames per second mechanical and 30 frames per second raw electronic. Now moving on to IBIS. Thankfully, this one is easier to call. Obviously Canon will bring their IBIS technology to the R1, but the key difference to the R5 and the R6 is that we expect IBIS to be switchable this time. Many users of long lenses like the 600 f4 and the 800 5.6 still prefer lens-only stabilisation. Now look at autofocus. Dual Pixel 2 is an excellent system. The R5 and the R6 still lead the field here, though others like Sony with the A1 will catch up, as and when their algorithms develop. This is why the rumoured quad pixel AF is so interesting, and if Canon can pull this off for the R1, it will consolidate their lead. Think of quad pixel AF as the difference between cross points and normal focus points. I believe this will vastly improve the already good tracking and also accuracy of lock, making the difference between eye and eyelash. That will please Tony Northrop. Now let's cover video. I don't think we'll see 8K in this camera. Canon see the 1DX as a photography first camera, and they will see the same with the R1. But I expect them to improve on the 1DX Mark III, with perhaps up to 6K downsampled to 4K 60 HQ mode, and 1080p by 120, maybe even 1080 by 240, which will be useful to capture fast action. Now let's look at when. The R1 is rumoured to be being tested in the wild by certain Canon ambassadors, and bodies will be available for the delayed Olympics, providing they go ahead this time. But I don't think stock will reach retailers for a public release until 2022. We can also expect some, or perhaps all, of the rumoured RF primes, the 300, the 500, the 600 and the 800. We are sure to see at least some of them in the same time frame. I've pulled together all the current rumours and tried to explain how they will fit with patent information into Canon's strategy for this camera. But even if Canon can't pull off the rumoured global shutter and or the quad pixel autofocus this time, remember, they will likely just fit two Digi-X processors, and this along with IBIS will give them a significant performance advantage over the 1DX3 and the R5, and crucially for Canon, any Sony fast action camera. Whatever Canon bring out, rest assured they will have given it careful consideration. I'll link to a video in the description where Canon design team explained the thought process and care that they went into the body for the R5. I recommend you watch it to see their thought processes and how each of their cameras evolve. Now just a word to my subscribers. Thanks to you, I'm nearing the 100 target for my giveaway of the AC battery adapter. I'd like to remind you all that a YouTube subscriber name must be visible to qualify. This is invisible by default, and you'll need to change it to have a chance to win. There will be a link in the description below, which will take you to the place that lets you change it. And thank you for already subscribing. Thanks for watching, rumour has it. I hope you found this useful. Please click the subscribe button below. It really helps the channel grow. And for my part, I'll continue to bring you camera news, rumour and informed opinion.